Authenticity is always key. And at the end of the day, it is science, and science is real. Science is true. And so when you're educating science, you have to do it in the same way as you have to articulate the material that you're talking about. You do your research, you understand the whys and hows, and you have to look deep into yourself as well too when you are explaining science. Like, who is it that you like? What is it that you're about? Why is this important to you? How does this affect you? Because people are gonna connect with you just as much as they're gonna connect with the science as well. We all kind of know intrinsically what that feeling is like when you are just doing something that you were told to do. You may not know it in the moment, but it always manifests itself at some point in time. It could be later on when you're like fully in depression mode and feeling stuck and isolated, or it could be in that moment where you're like, why did I choose to do this? This is so stupid. This is dumb.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferranbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. First off, thank you so much for listening to the show. I also want you to know you could also watch this episode on YouTube. Regardless if you're listening or watching the show, really appreciate your support. Today, I have the honor of having Maynard Okereke, aka HipHop MD, on the show. He's an award-winning science communicator and received the Odyssey Award in Excel Media for Excel Media, the People of Change Award for his community outreach efforts, and the Entrepreneur of the Year from NSBE. So that was just a little bit about you, Maynard, but how about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Yes. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Great introduction. As you mentioned, my name is Maynard Okereke on social media. I'm also known as the HipHop MD. I have a background in civil environmental engineering, but I work now as a science communicator with my platform, HipHop Science, where I really merge the worlds of music, entertainment, comedy, and science, and use them as tools to help educate on really a wide variety of STEM topics. So everything under the STEM umbrella of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm really passionate about encouraging more minority and youth involvement into the STEM fields and showcasing really all the opportunities that a career in STEM can open up for you. And so I've had a chance to do a lot of amazing things with my platform, and it's really a pleasure to be here having this conversation with you today.
It's an honor to have you here, Maynard. So I know you mentioned that you have your background in civil engineering. You do a lot of stuff in science communication. So I guess the first question I have is, was civil engineering something you always wanted to do? Or kind of talk me through your STEM journey.
Yeah, definitely. Civil engineering was never a pathway that I envisioned for myself necessarily. I always was a science nerd. I always loved all areas of STEM, really. And that included, design and architecture and all that. But my first actual love and what I originally went to college to pursue was actually wildlife biology. I wanted to be a wildlife scientist. And I used to love exploring, loved ecosystems, loved nature, loved animals, loved discovering animals. I was a big Nat Geo Discovery Channel fan.
Yeah.
And
Animal Planet.
that was always my dream. I always envisioned myself being on an expedition, like in the jungle in the Amazon somewhere, working with animals and exploring different ecosystems and wildlife. And so that's what I actually originally wanted to study. I ended up going the engineering route because I actually got talked out of doing wildlife science. I had not only peers, but I had educators and counselors that told me, nah, you don't want to go into wildlife science. There's no money in that. There's no opportunities to excel in that. You need to go where the money is at. You need to do computer science. You need to do engineering. That's where the money's at. And, obviously that stuck with me because, you come into college and you want to be able to set yourself up for success and do a career that's going to open up opportunities for you. Especially coming as a first generation here in the States. And my parents, my mom's side is from Cameroon. My dad's side is from Nigeria. And I spent my early childhood in West Africa. So I came in with really West African mindset and parental mindset of like, you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer type stuff, right? And so engineering seemed like the feasible route. I met a lot of different peers in college that were doing engineering. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I'll still kind of be in architecture and design. And I looked into environmental civil engineer as a great opportunity to still do some environmental courses, still being kind of that ballpark but it's really still engineering focused. And so that's the route I ended up going. And while I was in school, it was great. I fell in love with it. I had a chance to do some really cool internships that really kind of expanded a lot of my horizons within that field, and then ended up graduating with my degree in civil environmental engineering. And so, but for me, it was always the opportunity to explore and to be able to think expansive. And now, ironically, now that I've done kind of a 180 and I left engineering and I went entertainment route and kind of full circle, a lot of the work that I do now tends to be around wildlife and nature exploration. I've had a chance to do a lot of crazy conservation trips and go to the Amazon and places like that. And so that's definitely opened up a lot of different things for me. And so, but yeah, engineering was definitely not my first choice.
That's really cool. So it seems like a full circle moment from what you wanted to do, and then just now it seems like you're actually doing what you've always were passionate about.
hmm Yeah, no, definitely full circle for sure. And I always tell, especially when I do events for youth and talking, trying to spark inspiration and curiosity. I always tell people, do what you love, right? Because at the end of the day, that passion, that drive is what's going to keep you invested and keep you curious and keep you wanting to do more. And if you deviate and you try to pursue something just for the money, you might find some initial happiness enjoying it, but long term it's not going to fulfill you. And I was in that state for a long time, especially while I was in engineering. After I'd graduated, I had a great job, I was making good money, but I just wasn't passionate about the work that I was doing. It wasn't motivating me. I didn't wake up feeling juiced and feeling, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so that's why I took a leap of faith and left and went to pursue opportunities in entertainment, because outside of obviously loving wildlife biology and science, I was also into music and acting work, and I really wanted to open up doors within that avenue as well too. And so, being in a position where I wasn't doing necessarily what I loved and what I intended to go out there and do, motivated me even more to go out and pursue things that I was curious about. And I'd never had a chance to really dive into my entertainment side while I was in school and pursuing education. And so that was an opportunity for me to leave and go see what would happen on the entertainment side. And so that's what eventually brought me down here to LA, where I'm at now.
That's really incredible what you've been doing in science communication and really merging, because the way you approach science communication, I think, is really unique in the aspect of the music and also the comedy as well, which I appreciate because I feel like I like to tell people that my part time, what I love to do in my free time is just laugh. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate comedy and the stuff you do, just the entertainment piece of it, making science fun, but you're also learning at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, we all intrinsically know that, right? It's like learning should be fun. We should have fun while we're learning things. And that's the best way to learn things, is to be entertained, to laugh, to smile while you are absorbing new information. And I always hark back to the way I wish I was taught certain things when I was in school. Like I had some great teachers along the way, but a lot of times I was in the classroom just wondering why I'm going to use this, what's the purpose of this classroom, because you weren't really presented education in that way. It was just by the book, do these numbers, do these tests, and we grade you and we judge you. But there was no really expansive mindset of like, hey, this is how it plays a role in your life. This is why it's important. And then making it fun and blending in things that we already love doing. And so I try to do that with my work and really try to blend, music and entertainment and comedy and fuse those into the discussions around science, because they do play a role in everything that we do. And even as teachers and doing work with educators as well too, showing them the way to be able to teach their students in a more expansive way and bring in all these other elements, hands-on activities, field trips, whatever it may be, merging different worlds, bringing your passions to the table as an educator. Like there's so many cool ways to be able to show that science plays a role in everything that you do and really make it fun and exciting and entertaining. And obviously social media is a great platform to be able to do that, because we have the access to reach people and merge popular trends and new trending topics and all sorts of different things within that social media platform. And so I try to leverage that right now in the work that I do.
Absolutely. And I say you do it really well. It's really engaging, really insightful, all the stuff that you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So with that, I'm curious because I know you mentioned like you went the engineering route and you talk to students about like following your passions. And I will say, I mentioned this earlier, like we share West African roots. I know you mentioned between
Mhm.
Cameroon and Nigeria. Mine is just Nigerian parents. So,
Oh, okay. Nice.
well, I understand what you were saying about some of the
Yeah.
pressures of being like doctor, lawyer, engineer, or the fourth one, disappointment.
Yeah, yeah. Disappointment one is always guaranteed for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say my parents were a little bit as far as I would say they're as progressive of West African parents as you can get.
Yeah.
Because I think there's like there's a continuum there. I'm sure you probably understand.
But yeah, most def. Where are Nigeria parents from?
So my dad is actually Yoruba, my mom is Igbo.
Okay.
Yeah, so at least as far as Nigerians concerned, like I'm considered Yoruba because that's where my dad is. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I
Nice.
guess
Yeah.
for you, like where's your dad from?
Yeah, my dad's Igbo. So
Excellent.
he grew up in Bala, just outside of Owerri. So
Okay.
that's yeah, a couple hours. It's a couple hours away from Lagos. So I've had a chance
Yeah.
to go back to where my father was raised in yeah homeland. But I said my mom's side's from Cameroon, Douala, and I lived there for about 5 years when I was younger, and so I have a lot of connections to my mom's side there in Cameroon as well, and I've gone back multiple times there. So
Okay.
yeah,
That's
so really deep rooted in West African culture, and my parents were pretty progressive as well too. I have to admit, I didn't get the whole rant or anything like that when I made my choice to leave engineering and go pursue entertainment like I
okay.
thought I would. But I think that was mostly because my parents had kind of seen my life. I was always in the books, and I did everything by the book, right? I did everything, to that point to where I was a full grown adult and I was able to make my own decisions on what I wanted to do with my future career. And I'd done all those things, I'd already went to school, I got my degree, had a great job, was making good money, bought a house, like I did all these things, and then
Check,
it was
check,
like,
check.
okay, you can go out there and have the freedom to do what you want to do now. So I was definitely grateful for my parents' support during my kind of career transition.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate you mentioned that, just the transparency there. So
Mhm.
I'm curious because I think, especially this is IncrediPaul leadership, and a lot of people on the show, they're young professionals, and so they may not always know what it looks like to transition. And I know something when I was going through, and maybe you felt the same way, like when you study something or do something, you're like, I have to do this forever because I chose this.
Mhm.
But realizing later on that you can learn, change, transition, and that's just a part of life. So from your perspective, I guess what was there a key moment or anything that happened for you that kind of started you to where you are right now following your passions?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was necessarily one key moment or one specific thing. It was definitely a cumulative
Yeah.
buildup of a lot of different events. I was already in a point where, my day-to-day work was just not, like I mentioned earlier, it just wasn't fueling me. I wasn't feeling motivated. Every day was a struggle to get up and go to work. I'd sit in my car for an extra 10, 15 minutes, just, debating what I wanted if I wanted to come into work. The morning started to get harder and harder to wake up for. And then even at work, I'd go to work and I'd put my time in, and my work was pretty heavy. I had a pretty rigorous schedule. So I'm in work 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. I was putting in a lot of time. But then outside of work, I was still exploring all of my hobbies and other things that I love. So, at the time I was really deep into music, and I was working on different album projects and writing and working with other artists. And so I'd get off work, I'd go to the studio, I'd be in the studio recording or working on album projects. I eventually got into some commercial acting work. And so I was like, going to acting classes or going to auditions and stuff after work and different things like that. And all those things like excited me. I would look forward to getting off of work so I can do all these other things that I was passionate about, and it really kind of came to a turning point where all these different things I was doing outside of work really became the things that fueled me and motivated me. And the 10, 12-hour days I was putting at work were literally the worst parts of my day, and I think probably what started kind of hitting that turning point was, I did a really good job for a long time of really trying to keep these two sides of me in a way kind of separate, because there was the engineering side of me going to work and do my engineering job as a professional. But then obviously I was working as a music artist and entertainer on the other side, right? And there were really two contrasting worlds. And so I never really showcased that side of me at work, obviously, because, obviously as a black man, at being the only black engineer in my office and all these things, like not try to play into stereotypes or, you know how it is in the professional environment. Like you don't want to showcase that you have other things going on, because then people start questioning, oh, are you really into your work, or do you have the knowledge to really do this? They're like, we have to deal with that, right? As just a realism when it comes to just how we're perceived in the workplace. And so I really did I really focused on kind of keeping those two sides of me separate. But there definitely came a point where they started to merge. Obviously you have relationships with people in the office, and, through like things like Facebook or whatever, people start to see things or find things that you're doing. And so like, I remember like a couple of people at the office, I came across some, at the time I was, also as an entrepreneur and starting businesses and doing things, I was working with a couple of my friends on this product at the time. A crazy story, like I was diving into this. My friends had come up with this product called the booty pillow, which was literally like what you would think. It was a pillow shaped like a booty. And I was helping them on the marketing side of this business. And I did a voiceover for this video, and we made a whole like video promoting this product and everything. And it ended up going viral on YouTube. And then some people at my work saw it, right? And then later on, people started like discovering my music and like all these other things, and obviously people are like curious and want to know, like, oh, I didn't know you did this, and people are excited and want to be part of it. But for me, it was like awkward, because now I'm at work, and I'm trying to be a professional engineer, and then I got all these other aspects now of me that people are talking about in the office or playing, videos or songs and different things like that. And so these worlds kind of got really convoluted, and I was trying my best to keep them separate. And so kind of a whole combination of that, right? Not being excited and passionate about the work I was doing, but then really diving into all these other extracurricular things that I was doing that I was really, really excited about. It really just got me to the point where it's like, hey, I could either spend the rest of my life kind of tiptoeing the fence of kind of being these two things, or I can just dive into what it is that I truly love doing. And so, I ended up putting my resignation in, and literally a week later, I was driving my car down to LA with no plan, just like, hey, I'm going to figure this out and see what happens. And yeah, it was definitely a series of different things, but all those cumulative things really got to the point where it helped push me to that point. It took a long time, because I was hesitant. You don't want to go to a position where you're not making money or don't know what the future holds and all these different things. But it was definitely the best decision I made, because it opened up so many other doors that helped me lead to what I'm doing now.
No, that's really cool. And I like how you broke it down, that it wasn't just all of a sudden, it was an accumulation of different things that are going on, and just what I'm getting, like the overall dissatisfaction in your current work, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And then you're already working on these things, and then people at work were just starting to discover it, even though you're trying to keep it separate. So it was meant to be that you're supposed to be doing it, and that the fact you went viral, that people are finding it, sharing it, watching it, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was crazy. Yeah. And I always tell people, like, so yeah, some people have that aha moment, where it's like that one thing hits them and they're like, this is my motivation to make that change. I never had that one thing. And for me, security has always been a big thing for a long time in my life. But I think one of the good aspects of finally making that leap was, now I'm in a position where, you almost develop this fearless mentality. After I made that leap, it was like, oh, everything from there is easy. Whatever decision I make, whatever thing that I take, whatever decision or plan that I make that could be risky or perceived as risky, I dive into things super easy now, because there's nothing holding me back. And I know that no matter what, I'm always going to find a way to pick myself up, or I'm going to find a way to be successful at whatever it is that I choose to do, if that's what I love to do, or the decision that I make. And so for me, that's why that decision was so transcendent, because it really changed the whole mentality for me to not feel limited or not to be kept in a box, which for the majority of my life, I'd always been put into a box, one by the outside world, because people had perceptions and things, and I was trying to live up to different perceptions and break stereotypes and all these different things. And so being able to now expand outside of that and really trust in myself to know that whatever I do, whatever pursuit that I make, I'm going to land on my feet. That really helped elevate me. And I get to now share that inspiration and that motivation too with others through the lens of science and communicating science in the work that I do. So yeah, it was an absolutely perfect decision and one that I never regret.
No, that's really cool. Especially, yeah, all the inspiration and just the fearless aspect. Like when you make a decision like that, anything else, I feel like it's probably seems easier for you. I don't know if it's easy, but definitely easier from that standpoint.
But yeah, 100%. Every decision I made from there has been, yeah, you always have tough decisions that you got to make, things that are going to steer you in one direction or another, especially when it comes to finances and other things. But now it's like I love kind of living in that kind of danger zone of like, I don't know what's going to happen. I've got to figure this out. It's exciting and it's thrilling, and life is short at the end of the day. It's like, why are we going to live life doing things that are guaranteed or doing things that are safe? I'm always going to go the unsafe route, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it strategically, right? I'm not just going to whimsically just aim for nothing. I always have a plan in mind, but then also going to put the work behind it as well, too, because you can make risky decisions and risky choices if you're willing to put the work and take the time to be able to manifest it into a true vision that you want it to be. And so I know my mindset, I know my mentality when it comes to business and entrepreneurialism and other pursuits. When it's something that I love doing, I'm going to invest my time and energy to make it happen. So if you have that belief in yourself, like by all means, like step outside that box, break barriers, set a new foundation and see what happens. If you love it and you're passionate about doing it, no matter what, it's gonna reveal itself for you. I have a quote that I always go by, is that when you find your passion, it becomes your purpose, and you can no longer be passive. And that quote for me has stuck with me forever. And so I stay rooted in passion. I stay driven in a purpose, and I think that's for me has kept a strong foundation in a lot of the things that I do now.
That's an amazing quote. When you find your passion, it becomes your purpose, and you can no longer be passive. Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that quote. And it applies to everything, whether you're, pursuing business as a life individual, just going through the rigors of life, or if you're pursuing something that you're passionate about or trying to find your passion. Cause I think we all get to points in our life where we might feel stuck, or we might feel like we don't know what direction we're going. Maybe we're in a midlife crisis as you get older and you start to realize like, oh, this is the direction of my life. This is not where I intended to be when I was 30 or 40 years old. You start to really rethink a lot of things. And so having that mindset, it's always keeping me driven, because I always know, okay, I got to stay rooted in my passion and find what the purpose is in whatever it is that I'm doing. And so for me, that's uplifted me throughout every stage of my just career journey and life journey in general too.
No, I can definitely sense that through everything you do. Your passion definitely comes out. I can tell you're walking in purpose, and you're definitely not passive about anything that you're
Yeah.
doing. That's really good. So I know you do a lot of stuff in science communication, STEM communication. You talk to a lot of different people. So I'm wondering, like, from your standpoint, what is a common theme you see within STEM or science communication that you're constantly telling people that people really need to get when they're trying to communicate STEM?
Yeah. I think for me, it's funny because I didn't really come into it the plan of like, oh, I'm going to be a science communicator. This is what I'm going to do. I really
Mhm.
kind of fell into this space. I didn't know science communication was a thing before I started doing this. For me, I was really just trying to find an outlet to be able to showcase these multifaceted sides of me, right? So I wanted to be able to showcase my engineering and my science love, but also my love for entertainment and music, and put my acting skills and everything to use. And so ironically, when I started my hip hop science platform, it actually started out as a sketch comedy skit. I was out here in LA and I was doing music work and I was into acting. And so I was doing acting classes and pursuing some other opportunities on the acting side. And the one thing they always tell you here as an aspiring artist, aspiring actor, is like you want to build what you want to be seen or be cast in, right? And so I was always thinking about what was natural to me. And my natural to me was blending all these different sides, right? Nerding out about science and then nerding out about music and entertainment and all these things. That was natural to me. No matter what industry or people that I was around, everybody always like, how do you know this? Or like, if I was on the engineering side or in the science, kind of around science thing, people, they'd be like, oh, you rap, you do this, or them. And then on the vice versa, on the other side, people are like, oh, how do you know all these random science facts and different things, right? And so I was always kind of this multifaceted person, and I wanted to be able to bring all these things to the table and not feel like I had to be one or the other, or trapped or pigeonholed into being one thing. And so, the sketch comedy idea started with me, like, honing into that. Like, I'm going to really actually glamorize this, the fact that I have all these different kind of contrasting skill sets. And so the hip hop MD character was really just this kind of fun, like, science nerd that I was also into music and arts, and it would drop random science facts in like inappropriate situations. And so I just kind of ran with it, right? And from there, it eventually snowballed into making a lot of educational content. And I realized people were learning from it, and not only learning from it, but being entertained as well, too. And so those like the early beginnings of what I was doing as hip hop science with my hip hop science platform. And later on, as I realized that people were learning and getting educated from this, I started meeting like other science communicators and finding like a community online of people that were sharing science knowledge, which I had never seen before. That was new to me, of like just people online utilizing social media to share cool things happening in science and making them interesting. And so for me, I was able to merge kind of my unique skill sets to be able to do that. And I think now for people that are communicating science or kind of new into science world, and science communication has definitely become a trending thing, because you got a lot of scientists, but you got a lot of people now on social media and wanting to be able to amplify the work that they're doing and showcase the cool side of the stuff that they're doing. Because as science nerds, we find this stuff really cool, and to be able to have an outlet like social media to be able to share these unique things, I think is incredible. And I always say for up and coming science communicators and people communicating science, like, find what's true to you, right? Like for me, I'm able to merge hip hop and entertainment and comedy. For some other people, it might be more on the graphical side. Maybe I love imagery. Maybe I love showcasing things through pictures or whatever it is. Maybe I have a background in marine science, and I love the ocean, and I want to dive into these ocean elements, but also have a personality that's a little bit more reclusive and not necessarily in front of camera, but I want to showcase it. Find something that's you're able to hone into who you truly are and let your personality shine through. If you come off gimmicky or you try to be like somebody else, or it's always people are always gonna see through that authenticity. I think is key, and really kind of honing into your true self, what it is that you're about, and then tying it all back into what I mentioned earlier in that quote. It's like finding your purpose, like what it is that you're doing this work for. Why are you amplifying this work on social media? For me, things all really came full circle and really started to elevate to another level when I really honed into what my purpose was, which was encouraging more minority and youth involvement into the STEM fields. Because then it wasn't just me being like, oh, I want to showcase all these cool things that I love doing and share. It was rooted in a purpose, and people that are watching this content now were able to live a little bit through me, through my experiences, through the ups and downs and discrimination that I faced in my STEM journey, to be able to now uplift others that look like me, because I didn't grow up seeing other Black scientists that, and doing work that I was doing. And so now to be able to uplift other communities, and to be able to uplift my community, and to be able to now showcase a new side of science to Black and brown kids that otherwise may not have found science entertaining or fun or cool, to now merge pop culture and entertainment and hip hop and music and all these different elements into science to get them more passionate about doing it. Like when I really honed into that, that's when really things started to change for my platform. And so for any upcoming science communicators, I think that's key, is like, know what your purpose is, why you're putting this material out, why you're doing what it is that you do. Because when you're rooted in that, then everything is able to amplify around you. And then people can now galvanize around the work that you're doing, because they know who you are. They know what your directive is. They know what your mission is. And then it's easy for people to back you and support that. And you're able to now build a community around that as well.
That's really good, because this is IncrediPaul leadership. So I'll tie it into like a leadership trait that you really were talking about throughout, being your authentic self, being true to yourself, and understanding what your passion and purposes are. Is that when you do that and tap into that, that's when you're able to bring people along with you, as opposed to when you're trying to imitate someone else, and people can sniff it out fairly quickly that you're not being yourself. You're just trying to fit in or trying to put on a facade that's not you. And it doesn't resonate as well with people when you do that.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah, authenticity is always key. And at the end of the day, it is science, and science is real. Science is true. And so when you're educating science, you have to do it in the same way as you have to articulate the material that you're talking about. You do your research, you understand the whys and hows, and you have to look deep into yourself as well too when you are explaining science. Like, who is it that you like? What is it that you're about? Why is this important to you? How does this affect you? Because people are gonna connect with you just as much as they're gonna connect with the science as well too. And I think that's what makes science communication, especially through the lens that we do it on social media. I think that's what separates it from a lot of other aspects of communication, because now people are trusting in you as the individual presenting the science, and the science can be accurate and all these different things. But if the way you present it isn't palatable, if the way you present it isn't authentic, people aren't going to connect with it either way. And so I think you can reach a whole new height when you are not only talking about cool science and unique research and things that are really applicable to different things that may be happening in everyday life, but when you're able to now connect that with your authentic true self and you as an individual being driven in your purpose and your why, and also being able to have that skill set to be able to communicate and explain it in a unique way that really connects with people, it's transcendent, because now people can now follow along and learn, be educated, be inspired, and then also know that you are rooted in your own delivery and your own messaging, and people get behind that. And that's how you establish a community. That's how you establish your voice, and that's how you make change. And we're all in the game of trying to make change and leading us into a better place, whether that's as individuals, as holistically as a whole world. And like you mentioned, I think that ties into the leadership elements that you talked about as well too, is how can we now, tie in and be leaders in science and be leaders to really make a revolution and make innovative change in a lot of different spaces. And so, yeah, I think they all have an overlap and definitely unique connections that you can make to both.
Yeah, definitely a lot of overlap. And speaking of overlap, just because I know you mentioned like doing acting classes, you do a lot of stuff in the hip hop space, you do just entertainment as a whole. So I'm curious because you do so many different things. Are there things that you're more passionate about? I guess between what you're asked to do, like with different requests, speaking and stuff, versus what you're most passionate about, is it the same or is it different? Like, are you more passionate about the acting and you get more acting stuff? You're more passionate about the music? I'm just kind of curious because there's so many different aspects and things that you do.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's like at the end of the day, I'm running my own business. I do my
Mhm.
own work, and whatever it is that I do, I'm not forced to do anything, which is a great part of the work that I do. I get to do what it is that I want to do. And it took a long time to be able to position myself in this stage. But, if you see me on a stage speaking to a whole conference room full of educators, or if you see me in a classroom doing a workshop with second graders, or if you see me on a kids television show, or you see me out in the field somewhere in the Amazon doing some conservation project, like, I'm doing something that I want to do. I'm there because I want to be there, and it ties into my fascination of exploring and learning, because every opportunity that I get to partake in, I walk away learning something new as well too, whether it's learning about different people, connecting with different people, different backgrounds, but then also sharing my story and kind of my vision and all these different things. So I get a chance to do what it is that I love to do. I never really thought about, I do a lot of keynote presentations and speaking engagements. I never went into it like with that goal. It just started happening because I started doing things virtually, and then people started asking me to come and speak to their kids in different classrooms, and then educators wanted to get more insight about how to be able to share science in unique ways. And so I started doing work with educators, and then I started getting booked for conferences, and it just kind of opened it up. But those are all still rooted in my foundation and always kind of back again to my purpose, which is encouraging more minority and youth involvement into the STEM. And what different ways can I show that? I can show that by doing keynote presentations and speaking to audiences and supporting educators. I can showcase that by showcasing a fascination of the natural world in a presentation or in a hands-on demonstration in a classroom with kids, or I can show that on television in a visual format by doing a television show. And that's one of the things I think naturally Obviously having the background in entertainment and whatnot. My initial vision when I started this, like I mentioned, it started out as a sketch comedy show, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there was definitely a vision of bringing this to a mainstream audience through a visual format on television. And obviously, growing up loving Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, like that was always an inspiration of mine. And so, of course, to have a show on television as a featured scientist and kind of a new face of science, and having Black representation on TV as a scientist explaining science to the world would absolutely be a dream for sure. And I think everything that I get a chance to do now still revolves around that. And I have some
Mm-hmm.
opportunities and things that I'm actively working on and had a chance to do a lot of features and a lot of different television programming as well too. But I think holistically they all tie in together because it's me showcasing cool side of science, making science fun and interesting and engaging with a lot of different audiences, really with that purpose in mind. And so I think that's the part that I'm most excited about is I get a chance to wake up and do what it is that I want to do. And for me, that keeps me invested, keeps me interested and engaged in the day to day. I have things I wake up for because I know it's going to be a brand new day, a new opportunity might open up. I mean, I just got an email earlier today about being part of the UN Ocean Conference in France. And so that's next month. And so I might end up in France, speaking about protecting our oceans, and so it's like, these are random cool things that just pop up that I get opportunities to do or participate in, that, I never necessarily come in with a plan, but
Mm-hmm.
staying rooted in kind of the overall work that I do of bringing STEM and science entertainment to the masses. And whether you want to call it edutainment or whatnot, this space that we're in, it's making science fun and cool. And I think the world needs that and the world wants that. And so if there's ever a need and people are looking for that type of stuff, then there's always going to be opportunities that opened up around it. And so for me, it's just staying rooted back in my purpose. And it's easy now because I get to make those decisions of what it is that I do want to do or don't want to do. I say no to a lot of stuff, but I get a chance to say yes to a lot of cool things as well too.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine the amount of requests that you get from all the stuff that you're doing. But I think it's like, first off, that's why where we were just started. Just it's an honor to have you on the show because I know you only say yes to things that you're passionate about, things that you love to do, and just having you here going to talk about your passion. Because I like how every time I ask you or we talk about something, it always comes back to your passion, always comes back to your purpose. I think that's a really key thing for people to latch on to if they haven't already, is that all the things that you're doing, all the things that are around you, like, are these things that are your passion or your purpose? Are these things that people have told you that your passion or your purpose, and you really don't necessarily know? Either the things you're passionate about, you put them on the back burner because you feel like it's not going to make money, kind of like what your either family or friends had told you to go the civil engineering, environmental engineering, this quote safe route. But you'll always feel some sort of gap or some sort of longing if you don't go after things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And I think we've all been there. We all kind of know intrinsically what that feeling is like when you are just doing something that you were told to do. I mean, you may not know it in the moment, but it always manifests itself at some point in time. It could be later on when you're like fully in depression mode and feeling stuck and isolated, or it could be in that moment where you're like, why did I choose to do this? This is so stupid. This is dumb. I don't feel, we've all been there, right? Where we're stuck doing something and we're like, why are we doing this? And maybe maybe it was a financial decision. I didn't have a choice because I needed the money, right? And that's why I always tell people too, even doing this work, because, especially on social media, it's easy to glamorize lifestyles and different things like that and showcase the fun side of things. And so a lot of people are misled thinking like, oh, I just go and do that. Oh, I'm going to find success. It's going to be easy. This person's doing it. We glamorize obviously the successful parts of it, but people don't realize the time that it's taken, like I've been doing this hip hop science platform now for, this has been since 2015, when I really started out doing like that sketch comedy in that format to where it is now. So that's like 10-year period, and it wasn't really until the past 4 years that I've been like, making money doing this work, and so there was a long period of time where I was scraping and clawing and doing all sorts of different odd jobs and other random things to be able to get to this point, you know? And so I think it's always important to highlight that aspect of any business journey, right? Because as an entrepreneur and having a food business as well too, outside of doing the science stuff, like there's so many different things that go into a journey to get to a success point. And the work is an aspect that can't be untouched. Like you have to do the work. You have to put the work in. You have to put the time. There's no easy path. Yes, every once in a while you hear overnight success story of somebody that just, oh, I just this happened. But the people that find true success are rooted in consistency and they're rooted in dedication and work ethic. So even if you do have an opportunity that pops up overnight, like you still have to do the work to make sure that it's something that's going to have longevity to it. But most people that you see that are having success, they've been putting the time, they've been putting the work in, manifesting things, speaking things into existence, and then staying prepared and ready to go into action when that opportunity comes around the corner. And so I think that's also important to highlight for anybody that's aspiring to do anything that you love, is you have to be willing to put the work and the time in as well.
Absolutely. And I don't believe in overnight success. I think to some people it looks like an overnight success, but to your point, there's a lot of things they've been doing behind the scenes that no one ever saw or ever imagined they were doing. And
Mhm.
then to everyone else, it looked like it was overnight, but they've been working at it for years, months, decades sometimes before it just comes out.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. And so the time is needed, and the working hours are needed. And during that time period, you're gonna have to do things that you don't like to do, right? Because you're trying to get to that point where you can make those decisions to do everything that you want to do. But you have to make that sacrifice, and that sacrifice can be difficult. And I did a lot of jobs that I did not want to do along the way to get to this point now where I can make that decision of like, yeah, I do want to do that. I want to pursue these opportunities or not, you know? And so, yeah, it takes time and it takes a lot of building to get there, but you have to make the decision to put that time in and that work in. And then that's when things are going to manifest.
Yeah. Definitely takes time, but just keep pushing at it. I know even for myself, like I've shared on the podcast before, I do a lot of stuff with podcasts. I still work full time as an engineer in research and development. But
Mm,
I guess the different thing with me is that I did not try to hide it from the people I work with. So it's kind of funny sometimes
yeah.
they will, I know some of them watch different episodes and they'll come and
Hmm.
tell me about it, or other, because you also have the people that will tell you and the other people that are not telling you, and then they kind of, you can tell they are. But so I think it's one of those things. So I try to just be careful about certain things, but
Yeah.
also have fun with it as well, because at the end of the day, I'm doing something that I'm passionate about with the leadership side and really connecting with incredible people on the STEM side as well as the
Mm.
leadership side, because I know it helps the audience. It also helps myself to be able to talk with these people on a regular basis.
Yeah. And it's definitely helpful that you're still in the engineering world doing this, right? Because for me, I think that was the most difficult part about my transition, because I was doing something that was so contrasting. You know, I was working as an engineer by day and then I'm a rap artist at night, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like these very contrasting worlds that didn't make sense, right? For your situation, like if people learn that you're on a podcast talking about engineering and science, like people are like, oh, that's really cool. You're expanding what you're doing here. You're representing our company. You're representing, amazing employees that we have doing this research work. It ties in, and I
Mhm.
wish I had more opportunities like that, or was in a position where I knew at that time that I can make a lot of those connections
Mm,
to my day-to-day employment. I think for me at that period of stage where I was in my life, like I didn't know how to seamlessly integrate the two. Now, obviously, I have the skill set to be able to do that in the work that I do now, being able to merge music and entertainment. And, I could show up at a conference and speak to a whole room of educators looking like I do now with my headphones, maybe my lab coat or whatever. And people take me seriously because they know I'm there for a reason. They know I put the work in, and I have validity behind me to be able to showcase that. But it took time to develop that, and I wish earlier in that stage, it'd be nice in my early career to have known like how to merge those worlds. But I think for me, I had to go through that journey of leaving and pursuing a completely 180 opportunity, and then kind of full circle bringing that back in to the engineering. It took time for me to develop and hone into that skill where I could now do it seamlessly. But early in my career, I didn't have that skill set. I didn't have that wherewithal. I didn't know how to integrate that. They're very divided. But now that I think that's what drives me a lot more now, and why I'm able to stay passionate about it. It's because I'm truly doing these different things that I love. And now these sides of me that before were contrasting are now merged. And it's kind of bringing me true joy and happiness in being able to do this work.
Yeah. But I think there's beauty in that because we all have our different paths. I think our contrasting paths with you like going in directly into something that was really different and then bringing it back together. And then me on the other side trying to merge the two. Sometimes not doing it well, but it is what it is. So I think that's great for the audience to see that there's not just one way of doing it. You have to figure out your own path, which comes back to what you've been talking about with your authenticity piece.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it's a growth. It's part of the growth period. And, anybody that's pursuing something, you have to go through that growth stage. And, it seems seamless now because we've done the work and put the time in. And so we're at this stage now. But at the beginning, for anybody that's pursuing anything business wise or making a change, like it's gonna seem rough and the edge is gonna be frayed, until it comes to a time where it's like, okay, this makes sense. I could clean things up here, clean a little bit things over here, and now I'm able to put all these things together or utilize these tools in a different way. But it takes time to get to that stage, and the growth part is part of that work that you put in to get to that new area of life that you want to be in. And so it's part of the growth, it's part of the development, and it's just something that you have to go through.
Absolutely. Well, we've been going for a while, but I want to make sure, is there anything that you haven't shared out about your story or that you want to share with the audience as we wrap things up?
Wow, I guess I'll talk about like some ongoing projects that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I'm working for those that are in education or educators that are following along or may have just learned about the platform and the work that I do. Obviously, I touch on a wide variety of different age groups. I do a lot of work with educators. I do a lot of work with college students, young working professionals, but I do a lot of work with kids as well too. Whether that's kids programming, could be things on television, could be in-person appearances, workshops, demos, and stuff for kids. But I'm currently working on a children's book that's going to be releasing next year, March of next year. And so super excited about that. Going to start going to pre-orders later this summer. And that's going to be a really cool exploratory science book showcasing real life scientists doing incredible research in different areas of STEM across the globe. And so super excited about that book. And that's something I'm going to be really, really pushing this summer to a lot of different outlets and tying that in with some of the other ongoing programming and things that I have in development to really be able to support our youth is definitely something I'm passionate about. So if there are any educators or people that are interested in providing more STEM opportunities for kids, definitely keep in touch, reach out because I got a lot of things within that space that are in development right now.
Oh, that's good. And so by the time this episode is coming out, I'm sure the pre-orders will be live. So I'll make sure we'll link that in the show
So
notes so they can pre-order it. I also want to make sure people know how to stay connected with you, whether it's on social media, website. What is the best way people to stay connected with you?
yeah, absolutely. My website is the easiest one because I keep updates there all the time. You can visit that hiphopscienceshow.com. But on Instagram is where I'm usually most active. If you're on social media, Instagram and TikTok, keep up to date with all my crazy videos and other exploratory things that I do. And that's just at Hip Hop Science Show. And so if you want to find me on those platforms, I'm there. You can't miss me. I have my glasses, headphones, maybe a lab coat on, but at the end of the day, we'll be talking about some area of science that's fun, entertaining, and engaging. And so for those that are new, welcome on board, and hopefully you stay along for this crazy science ride.
Yeah, crazy science, right? Indeed. Love it. Well, Maynard, thank you so much for making the time to be on the show and really turning to the audience, like what he has shared from his journey. Like, we've said it a few different times. I think it's worth repeating, like the authenticity piece,
Yeah.
pursuing your passion, pursuing your purpose, not being passive about that at all. I think to your point, you talked about the growth piece, and I think it's definitely something that we learn and grow in because it's definitely harder when you're just either getting into college or out of college. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that it always
Yeah.
exists, but I think it's more prevalent when you're at a younger age because you're learning so much, you're growing so much. So it can be harder to make the jump. But I think talking with people like you, connecting with people who are walking in their purpose is so crucial to help build that up. And what you're doing, especially empowering Black and brown people in STEM, like especially right now, we didn't get into it, but like all the stuff with DEI, anti-DEI stuff, I think it's more
Yeah.
crucial than ever, because I know there's a lot of different systems in place to help with that. But I think more than ever, people like you or anyone that is diverse in STEM, like using your voice, using your platform to share and show that we're out here. Because sometimes it can be hard because they don't have the people that look like them so they can actually pursue those paths. So what you're doing is so incredible.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're right. There's a lot of things happening when it comes to DEI and representation in STEM or lack thereof. And those are all important topics. And I think, just even us being on this platform here, two Black scientists talking about STEM and engaging communities in STEM and uplifting our community as well. And then just being representative figures for people that may never see Black scientists and male scientists. And there's a desperate need for more of us doing this work. And so that just showcases the importance of that. And hopefully, if we're able to touch youth and reach youth in a dynamic way, hopefully we can inspire a whole new generation of future STEM leaders as well.
Absolutely. The inspiration, the hip hop, the comedy, all of it you bring to the table. So definitely reiterate, anyone listening to this or watching this, if you have not come across Maynard's content, first off, what are you doing? Like, I don't know where you've been. That's like the biggest thing. But thank you so much for listening, watching the show. Keep pursuing your passions, going after your purpose. Don't be passionate about it, and you can be incredible.
Yes, love it. Thanks for having me.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible.